Just as we simplified our national rules with the rule of six, we will now simplify and standardise our local rules by introducing a three-tiered system of local COVID alert levels in England, set at medium, high and very high.
Boris Johnson campaigned on a promise to level up struggling northern areas, but his three-tier plan threatens to keep them in economically debilitating lockdowns. Prime Minister ordered pubs, bars and gyms in the high-risk city of Liverpool to be closed, a move that inflamed tensions with local officials and laid bare how the second wave of the coronavirus pandemic is hitting Britain's north harder than London or the rest of the south. Mr. Johnson's measures dramatised the country's increasingly urgent battle to avert a repeat of last spring's deadly outbreak. But the rigours of this latest campaign are being felt unevenly. 2.4 million people in Liverpool and its suburbs face tough new restrictions while for now, life in London goes on more or less normally. The Prime Minister introduced a much-heralded three-tier system of restrictions which he promised would simplify what had become a confusing patchwork of targeted lockdowns in cities around the country.
Engagement with other leaders in the North West, the North East and Yorkshire and Humber is continuing. I know how difficult this is. They, like us, like everyone in this House, are grappling with very real dilemmas. But we cannot let the NHS fall over when lives are at stake.
Rather than calm the waters, the plan has infuriated officials in the north of England, who complain that they were cut out of the government's deliberations. And the new lockdowns, aimed at the areas where the virus is most rampant, will throttle their economies, they say, betraying an election year promise by Mr. Johnson and his Conservatives to raise prosperity in the north closer to the level of London and other richer areas in the south. We don't want to go back to another national lockdown, Mr. Johnson said in Parliament. But with new infections quadrupling over the last 3 weeks and hospitalisations rising to crisis levels, he said the government had no choice but to tighten its measures. We can't let the virus rip, Mr. Johnson said. Under the government's new system, cities or regions will be subject to 3 escalating tiers of restrictions, depending on the severity of their outbreaks. In the first, or medium alert level, they would merely face the most recent restrictions Mr. Johnson announced for the entire country, a ban on social gatherings of more than 6 people and a 10 p.m. curfew on bars and restaurants. The second, or high alert level, triggers a ban on mixing by people from different households, while under the third, or very high alert level, the one just imposed on Liverpool, pubs, gyms and some other non-essential businesses must close. Schools, shops and offices can remain open, fulfilling Mr. Johnson's vow last summer that if he faced a choice between schools or pubs, he would close pubs. Fears that the virus could overwhelm the health service in the north prompted a decision to prepare 3 field hospitals there to admit patients. A network of so-called Nightingale hospitals, constructed earlier this year, had been mothballed, but now those in Manchester, Sunderland and Harrogate have been placed on standby.